It's a Sunday afternoon and you're standing in someone else's living room, trying to act like you're not already measuring it for your couch. The place smells like fresh paint and those little reed diffusers realtors. Bulk order from somewhere. There's a fruit bowl on the counter with fruit. That is definitely not real. Soft music playing from a speaker you can't locate. And on the kitchen island, fanned out like a poker hand, the listing flyers. You pick one up. For bedrooms. 2.5 baths. Updated kitchen. The photos somehow made the backyard look bigger than it is. And at the top in a font that was chosen specifically to not feel alarming. $399,900. Your brain immediately rounds down. $400,000. You do the quick mental math the way everyone does it. Divide by 30 years. Divide by 12 months. Land somewhere around $1,300 and think, okay, that's probably fine. We can do that. And that number, that $1,300, is the most dangerous number in American personal finance right now. Not because it's wrong, but because it's so incomplete it might as well be a lie. My name is Jack and I spend way too much time doing the math that the listing flyer leaves off. Hit subscribe because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you the exact household income required to actually afford a $400,000 house in 2026. Not to get approved for one. Not to technically make the payment. To actually afford it without quietly turning your entire financial life into a slow-motion emergency. I ran the numbers 4 times. The answer is not what the mortgage calculator told you. Before we get into the math, I need to reframe the question because the question itself is a trap. When most people ask if they can afford a $400,000 house, what they're really asking is, will the bank say yes? And the bank will almost certainly say yes. The bank says yes to a lot of things that will ruin your life. Being approved for a mortgage and being able to afford a mortgage are two completely different calculations made by two parties with completely different interests. The bank is asking, based on your income and debt, what is the maximum amount we can lend you before our risk models get nervous? You should be asking, based on my actual life, what is the maximum I can spend on housing before I stop building wealth and start just surviving? Those two numbers are not the same number. And in 2026, the gap between them is wider than it has ever been. So today we are going to meet two couples. We are going to run the real numbers on a $400,000 house. And we are going to figure out who can actually afford it, what it actually costs, and what the industry desperately does not want you to calculate before you sign. Let me introduce you to Marco and Diana. Mid-30s, married, combined, income of $110,000 a year, which puts them comfortably above the median household income in America. Marco's in project management. Diana works in healthcare administration. They have a modest emergency fund, a little, in their 401ks and a credit score good enough that the lender smiled when he pulled it up. They found the house on a Tuesday night, went to the open house that Sunday, and by the following Friday they were pre-approved for $420,000. 2 miles away, renting a 2-bedroom apartment, are James and Claire. Same age. Combined income of $108,000. James does IT support. Claire is a graphic designer. They looked at the same houses. They ran some numbers. They passed. Hold on to both couples. We'll come back to them. First, let's talk about the number nobody puts on the flyer. Here is what a $400,000 house actually costs every month in 2026. Mortgage rates as of mid-2026 are sitting right around 6.8% on a 30-year fixed loan. Let's say Marco and Diana put 10% down. That's $40,000, which is already a significant chunk of savings for most households. Their loan balance is $360,000. At 6.8%, their principal and interest payment is $2,351 a month. That's the number the mortgage calculator shows you. That's the number that feels manageable when you're standing in the kitchen with the fake fruit. But we are just getting started. Property taxes. The national average effective property tax rate is about 1.1% of the home's value per year. On a $400,000 house, that's $4,400 a year. $367 a month. Added. Homeowners insurance. Average premium in 2026 for a $400,000 home runs about $2,200 a year in most markets, higher in Florida, Texas, anywhere that's caught fire or flooded recently, which is increasingly everywhere. Call it $183 a month. Added. PMI. Because Marco and Diana put less than 20% down, they owe private mortgage insurance until their equity crosses that threshold. PMI typically runs 0.5% to 1.5% of the loan amount per year. At 1%, that's $3,600 a year on their $360,000 loan. $300 a month. Added. HOA fees. Not every home has them, but roughly 25% of all single-family homes in America do, and that number is growing. The national average HOA fee is about $170 a month. If their house has one, add it. We will leave this one out of our base calculation to be conservative, but keep it in your back pocket. Maintenance and repairs. This is the one that destroys new homeowners every single time. The standard rule of thumb is to budget 1% of the home's value per year for maintenance. On a $400,000 house, that's $4,000 a year. $333 a month. And that is not pessimistic. That is the baseline. The year the HVAC dies, the roof needs work, or the water heater gives up, you will wish you had budgeted more. Utilities. The average American homeowner spends about $420 a month on utilities across electricity, gas, water, and trash. Renters typically pay less because they're in smaller spaces and often have some utilities included. Homeowners pay more for more square footage in a structure they are entirely responsible for. Let's add it all up. Principal and interest, $2,351. Property taxes, $367. Homeowners insurance, $183. PMI, $300. Maintenance reserve, $333. Utilities, $420. Total, $3,954 a month. Nearly $4,000 a month. Every month. For 30 years. That is the real cost of the $400,000 house. Not $1,300. Not $2,351. Just under $4,000 before you've bought a single piece of furniture, paid for internet, or replaced the refrigerator that the sellers took with them when they left. Now let's look at Marco and Diana's actual situation. Their combined gross income is $110,000 a year. After federal and state taxes, they take home roughly $6,800 a month. That's being generous with the tax estimate and assuming no pre-tax deductions beyond basic 401k contributions. Their housing cost, $3,954 a month. That is 58% of their take-home pay going to housing. The commonly accepted guideline, the one financial planners and every serious piece of housing research agrees on, is that your total housing costs should not exceed 28% to 30% of your gross income. Some lenders will approve you up to 43% of gross income on total debt, but 28% to 30% is where you can still pay off housing and build wealth at the same time. For Marco and Diana, 28% of their gross income is $2,567 a month. Their actual housing cost is $3,954 a month. They are $1,387 over the line before they've driven to work on Monday. Now, the lender did not tell them this. The lender looked at their gross income, their existing debt, and their credit score. The lender approved them because on paper, at 43% debt to income, the numbers technically work. In the lender's model, Marco and Diana are a good risk. In real life, Marco and Diana are house poor. House poor is the specific financial condition where you own a home but the cost of owning it consumes so much of your income that you have essentially no capacity to save, invest, handle emergencies, or live with any financial flexibility. You own the asset, but the asset owns you back. Harder. And here's what house poor actually feels like 14 months in. Doesn't feel like a crisis. Feels like a slow, persistent tightening. It's Diana quietly moving money from their emergency fund in November. Because the furnace needed a part and there was no other option. Marco realizing that between the mortgage, the insurance, the utilities, and the grocery bill, his 401k contribution this year was $0. It's both of them knowing they need new tires and neither of them saying it out loud. It's the check engine light that stays on for 3 months because the timing isn't right. It's Sunday nights with a low-grade hum of financial anxiety that neither of them can fully name because on paper, they own a home and owning a home means they're doing well. The house doesn't feel like an achievement anymore. Feels like a monthly obligation with a backyard. Now let's check in on James and Claire. Same income, same neighborhood. Still renting the 2-bedroom for $1,850 a month. Their housing cost as a percentage of take-home pay is about 27%. Inside the guideline, they have $1,400 to $1,600 more per month in actual breathing room compared to Marco and Diana. They max out their Roth IRAs. Every year, they have a real emergency fund. Claire's car needed $1,800 of work in the spring and they paid for it in cash and barely noticed. And every month, they invest the difference between what they pay in rent and what a mortgage would cost them. $1,400 a month into a plain index fund. Over 10 years at an 8% average annual return, that is $256,000. James and Claire are not behind. James and Claire are winning a game that Marco and Diana did not realize they had entered. I know. I can already hear it forming. The objection that has been repeated so many times it feels like financial law. But Nick, rent is just throwing money away. At least Marco and Diana are building equity. Let me show you why this argument, while emotionally satisfying, is mathematically weak in a lot of real situations. In year one of a 30-year mortgage at 6.8%, the overwhelming majority of every payment goes to interest, not principal. On Marco and Diana's $360,000 loan in month one, $2,040 of their $2,351 payment goes to interest. Only $311 goes to actual equity. They are handing $2,040 to the bank every single month and calling it an investment. Add the property taxes, the insurance, the PMI, the maintenance. The actual money they are not getting back in year one is enormous. The equity build in the early years of a mortgage is slow, and it is being purchased at a very high price. James and Claire's rent, meanwhile, is not being thrown away. It is being exchanged for shelter, flexibility, zero maintenance liability, and the ability to invest the difference at market returns. That is not throwing money away. That is a different financial strategy, and in many markets and many situations in 2026, it is the better one. Now here is the part that nobody who profits from home sales wants you to linger on. Think about every person in the transaction when Marco and Diana buy that house. The real estate agent collects a commission. In 2026, after recent industry changes, that is still typically 2.5% to 3% on the buyer's side. Alone, on a $400,000 sale, the agent earns up to $12,000 for the transaction. The seller's agent earns similarly. The lender earns origination fees and 3 decades of interest. The title company earns closing fees. The home inspector earns an inspection fee. The appraiser earns an appraisal fee. By the time Marco and Diana close, they have paid somewhere between $8,000 and $14,000 in closing costs alone on top of the down payment. Money that is gone the moment they sign. And every single person in that room has a financial interest in Marco and Diana buying the most expensive house they can qualify for. Not the most house they can afford. The most house they can qualify for. There is not one person at that closing table whose commission improves. When Marco and Diana decide to wait a year, save more, and buy something more manageable. Financially speaking, restraint makes you the villain in their story. The entire machinery of American homebuying is optimized to move you from the open house to the closing table as fast and as expensively as possible. And layered on top of the financial machinery is a century of cultural programming that says homeownership is the definition of having made it. It is the American dream in its most literal form. It is what responsible adults do. It is what your parents did and their parents before them. And anyone who questions it is either lazy, afraid, or doesn't understand how money works. What almost no one tells you is that the American dream was aggressively marketed. The 30-year mortgage was a government invention designed to stimulate the post-war economy. The idea that renting is failure was constructed by an industry that profits from sales. The emotional weight attached to buying a home is not a natural human feeling. It was engineered, and it has been enormously profitable for everyone except the people who stretch too far to chase it. So, let me be fair to the other side because I always try to be. There are genuine, legitimate reasons to buy a house that go beyond the pure math. Stability matters. If you have kids in a school district you love, if you want to put down roots in a community, if the psychological security of owning your space has real value to your quality of life, that is a real benefit that does not show up in a spreadsheet. Forced savings is real. A mortgage payment for people who would otherwise spend the difference functions as enforced equity building even if it is expensive equity. If James and Claire would spend the extra $1,400 a month on lifestyle instead of investing it, the math shifts. Leverage works in your favor when prices rise. If Marco and Diana bought in a market that appreciates 4% a year, their $40,000 down payment is controlling a $400,000 asset. If the home goes to $416,000 in year one, they made $16,000 on a $40,000 investment. That is 40% return on their down payment before any other factor. In appreciating markets over long time horizons, real estate has created generational wealth for families who otherwise would have had none. And the mortgage interest deduction, while less powerful than it used to be after the 2017 tax changes, still provides some benefit to homeowners who itemize. The answer is not never buy. The answer is buy with clear eyes, full numbers, and a realistic picture of what you are actually signing. So here is the framework I want you to use. I call it the true cost rule. Before you make an offer on any home, calculate the number I showed you today. Not just the mortgage, the full monthly number, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, PMI if applicable, maintenance reserve, and utilities. Every line item. Then divide that number by your actual monthly take-home pay. If the answer is above 35%, you are not buying a home. You are buying a financial constraint that will follow you into every other decision you make for the next decade. If the answer is below 30%, you are in a workable range. If the answer is between 30% and 35%, you can make it work, but you need to be honest about what you are trading: investment capacity, emergency reserves, and financial flexibility for the asset. And then ask the second question. Do I have 20% down? Not because the bank requires it. Because 20% down means no PMI, a lower monthly payment, a smaller loan, and the psychological security of starting with real equity instead of starting underwater. If the answer to both questions is yes, your full monthly cost is under 30% of take-home and you have 20% down, you are likely in a position to buy without it, quietly restructuring your entire financial life around the mortgage. So what income does that actually require for a $400,000 house in 2026? Let's run it cleanly. With 20% down, the loan is $320,000. At 6.8%, the principal and interest. Payment drops to $2,090. No PMI. Property taxes at $367. Insurance at $183. Maintenance at $333. Utilities at $420. Total monthly cost, $3,393. For that to be 30% or less of gross income, you need a gross monthly income of at least $11,310. That is an annual household income of $135,700. And you need $80,000 in cash for the down payment plus closing costs. Let me say that plainly. To comfortably afford a $400,000 house in 2026, by the standard that lets you still build wealth, maintain an emergency fund, and not spend the next decade financially stretched, you need a household income of approximately $135,000 and $80,000 in liquid savings. That is roughly the top 20% of American household earners. Not the top 1%. Not the wealthy, the upper middle class. And even many of them are not sitting on $80,000 in cash ready to deploy. So what does this mean for Marco and Diana at $110,000? It means they are not ready yet. Not because they are irresponsible. Not because they made bad choices. But because the math, the honest, complete math, says the house will cost them more than they can currently absorb, without giving up their financial future to pay for it. It means they have a number to work toward. It means in 2 to 3 years, with intentional saving and income growth, the same house or a better one will fit their life instead of consuming it. And if they rent and invest the difference while they wait, they will arrive at that purchase with a down payment, a healthy investment account, and a monthly payment that leaves room to actually live. That is not losing. That is strategy. James and Claire already figured this out. Not because they are smarter than Marco and Diana, because someone showed them the full number before. They fell in love with the fake fruit on the counter. Now I want to give you something to take with you beyond the math. If you are out there right now feeling behind because you do not own a home yet, if people at dinner keep asking when you are going to buy, if your parents shake their heads slightly when you mention your apartment, I need you to hear this. The pressure you feel to buy is not coming from math. It is coming from a culture that was sold a story about what success looks like and has been repeating it so long nobody checked if it was still true. The $400,000 house is not the milestone. Financial stability is the milestone. The house is one possible road to get there, and only when the numbers support it. Every month you do not stretch into a mortgage you cannot absorb is a month you quietly invested in your actual future. Nobody will congratulate you for it. There is no closing table moment, no key ceremony. No Instagram post that gets 200 likes. But 15 years from now, when your investment account is doing things that give you choices, when you buy a house because you want to and not because the cultural script said it was time, you will look back at every month you waited and understand it was not hesitation. It was patience. And patience with money is the closest thing to a superpower that actually exists. Keep renting if the math says rent. Keep saving. Keep investing the difference. And when the numbers line up, buy the house with clear eyes. A real down payment and a payment that fits your life instead of consuming it. Because the goal was never the house. The goal was always the freedom that comes after it. Quick reminder that I am not a financial advisor, and this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Any results depend entirely on your own decisions and actions. If this reframed how you are looking at that Zillow tab you have open right now, hit like, subscribe for more of these, and tell me in the comments, are you currently renting or buying, and which one is working for you? I will see you in the next one.